Welcome back to Sunrise today. Let me get to Mr. Ojobo. We'll have to be going back and forth now as we inch towards the concluding part of this. You know, in spite of all the explanation you've given, you still have a lot of people who are wondering, why didn't the Commission consult on this matter before you announced this? I mean, you have the Telecoms Parliament, you have Consumer Parliament, you have so many platforms.
Well, we...
Go ahead.
Well, we recognize that, and that's actually why we're here this morning. Of course, the plan has been suspended for now, and the Commission is going to conduct a study and come out with data pricing, and of course have a larger consultation with consumers and various groups. But I want to say something here, that the reason why the Commission had to go ahead to introduce an interim data flow is as a result of the stress in the industry today. The industry actually is having a lot of stress. And I just want to explain. Now, as at 2014, we're talking about, and even 2015, that the floor price was removed, the challenge of accessing foreign exchange was not there. Today, as we speak, a lot of service providers have to go to the black market to source for foreign exchange to bring in equipment. Now, and it's beginning to affect the industry. And the reason why the Commission had to intervene is because it's becoming very difficult for a number of them to operate. Now, if we don't have this intervention, you're most likely going to have business failures, with the consequence of job loss and also consequence of having monopolies. And we go back to the days where consumers don't have choice as to the kind of service.
I'm going to have to bring in Mr. Ogunbanjo on this one. Pardon me, Mr. Ojobo. Pardon me to butt in at that stage. You heard his comment on that.
Right. But let me say that, for instance, in Ghana, handsets duties were slashed by 50%. SIM card duties was also slashed. Now, waivers could be given, for instance, for telecom equipments, so that telecoms data services will grow rather than just increase. There are so many other options that is available.
Yeah, but do you think that that will be sufficient to meet up with those demands of that? Because they still have to get across the forex. I mean, get access forex.
You see, for now, what I'm saying is, because it's a critical sector that is providing so many jobs, so many businesses do rely on data, we are now saying, look, it is a critical sector that has to be protected. And it means, because it's a bigger job creator as we speak for this country. So it should be guided, and it is a situation where government should take it seriously and support it rather than increase, increase tariff.
So, Mr. Ojobo, having introduced this, I mean, now it's been suspended because the Commission says they will go ahead, conclude their study before coming back with it, even though you'll then have people who will ask, so if that study had not been concluded, why jump in and bring up this data floor? And does introducing this data floor mean that there is a ceiling for which they can't sell their megabytes above?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I will take maybe in two parts. First, why did we have to introduce the interim data floor while we have not done the study? Now, we had consultations with the industry, and based on the information we got, we saw that the floor is around 90 kobo per megabyte. And based on all of the evidences and information we got from the operators. And because the industry is going through stress right now, the regulator needed to intervene before we begin to see businesses fail. Studies, for instance, maybe minimum of 3 months, sometimes 6 months before you can conclude a study. But we needed to do this so that we don't have situations where those other operators who don't have as much capacity as the big ones can still be playing in that market, providing some innovative products and services for consumers. You see, there are people that all they want is data, and they can actually go to those ones that provide those 4G services, because most of them are playing in the 4G area. And of course, you know that 4G in itself also is an advanced technology in terms of data. So if you have a situation where those kind of innovative products and services, are out of the market, and you're left maybe with one or two, then you don't have choice. Then secondly, on the issue of waiver, maybe having some intervention in terms of ICT products, well, I think it's something that government can take up. The Commission has tried to champion the cost of industry, the area of access to foreign exchange, because that's a major problem. Because most of the equipment, almost all the equipment we have in the industry are imported. And as we speak today, service providers are going to the black market to source for funds. It is that critical, it's that bad. So, and that's why this flaw was also introduced, because to protect the smaller ones, so that they can have access to bigger share of the market, and will be able to have money plowed back to that business and be able to keep the jobs of those Nigerians that are working there. Diolu said something. This industry is a most critical industry in Nigeria today. Oil is having challenges. ICT is there. Of all of the other sectors, ICT still remains the sector that has posted positive GDP growth in the first quarter, in the second quarter, and in the third quarter. In the third quarter, ICT contributed 1.4 trillion to the economy. So if we don't guide this industry properly, if we as regulators don't guide this industry properly, and we have business for failures, the consequences will be very grave. And that is the reason why the regulator had to intervene at this point.
It's a good thing that you're trying to explain all of this. But again, sometimes when we look at it from one perspective, we just have to look at it broadly. I also recall at the start of this whole game, talking about the entrance in the telecoms, we recall that the same telco you just mentioned was the one that proved to others that they were wrong in per second billing. I recall very vividly, it was almost the same argument. Everyone said it was a no, it's impossible. So perhaps shouldn't we be speaking with them, or so that they can better school others, or the big ones shouldn't be, I think, allowed to get into some other issues in the system. Perhaps if you are a wholesale or a major, you should be restricted to what aspect of services you provide, while the others can come under you.
Well, Sulaiman, it might sound a plausible argument, but it's not, because the point is this: if you allow that, then what happens is that you have others driven out of the market, and you are left with an operator. And what you have is a monopoly. And we know the inefficiencies of monopolies all around the world. We have experience here in Nigeria as well, where we had NITEL. So the thing is this: the regulator looks at the market. We have what you call international best practices. All over the world, the regulator monitors the market and have floors established in different locations. I can give you, for instance, a rundown of cost of services in Africa of about 16 countries, because there has always been this argument that Nigeria is most expensive in terms of provision of both data and voice service. I can just run through, and I just, based on studies that have been conducted by an organization known as Research ICT Africa. Now, Tanzania has the lowest at 90 cents per gigabyte. Egypt 2.8, Mozambique 2.9, Uganda 3.6, Ghana 3.9, Guinea 4.0, Rwanda 4.0, Sudan 4.3, Tunisia 4.8, Nigeria 4.9, Liberia 5.0, Kenya 5.0, Cape Verde 5.0, Niger 5.2, Morocco 5.2, South Africa 5.3, Namibia 5.3, that is $5.5. Malawi 5.8, and Burundi 5.8. So if you look at this, a sample of 21 African countries, you see that Nigeria is there in the middle at about number 10 at 4.9 cents per gigabyte of service.
We hear you on that one, but even in Tanzania, where you say is lowest, when you get to the airports, Wi-Fi is available there for free. And you have the population here in this country, but you get to the airport here, it's not the same thing. But Mr. Gubanjo, you heard the submissions there that in other African countries were just there in the middle.
Well, for instance, he also read that in Ghana it's 3.9, whereas Nigeria is 4.9, where there is so much volume here. Better than Ghana. I think NCC should hold more consultations, much more consultations, because the ICT industry is one industry that Nigeria is living on now, and it has to be protected. I must say that CDMA, for instance, in September 2006, interconnect rates was, I think the regulator then wanted to sort of bring up the CDMA and now took the interconnect rates of GSM. They were enjoying a discriminatory rate at that time, which was lower. The regulator now brought the CDMA rate to at par with the GSM operators. That was the beginning of the end for CDMA. Today, there seems to be no CDMA. So we shouldn't fall into the same mistake. We should try as much as possible, look at other areas, engage more stakeholders, particularly, NCC has only been talking to operators, engage more consumer groups, more stakeholders that could actually make suggestions as to protecting the industry, no tariff hike.
All right, that means that in the days ahead we'll engage, keep this conversation going on as we seek to engage the people, the regulators, consumers. That means we'll also extend invitations to both of you in the days ahead.
And the telcos.
Oh yeah, sure. We have to thank you for coming on, Mr. Tony Ojobo, Director of Public Affairs of NCC. And
can I just?
I'm afraid we'll have to.
Can I just make a comment in closing?
Wait, I'm afraid we have to run, Mr. Ojobo. We're completely out of time.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second to make a comment.
Okay.
Please, we just want to assure the Nigerian consumers. We want to assure the Nigerian consumers that NCC's got their back. We are doing all that we can to make sure that, one, the quality of service that they get is of international standard. And then secondly, to make sure that they have opportunity to make their choices and to avoid a situation where we have monopolies that begin to take advantage of people and then increase price maybe when it's least expected.
All right.
On that note, we want to thank you for the opportunity of coming here.
Thank you as well. Thank you as well, Mr. Dolo Gubanjo, President of Telecom Subscribers. Thank you also for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
There you go. We'll be back in just a moment. I'll focus on another matter entirely. Please join us again.